You read it in the title, but at the minute all I'm seeing online for Titans on Prismatic is Syntho's Consecration, and it's getting a bit stale seeing a subclass labelled as having loads of build crafting options, just having one build. I can't promise I'm completely reinventing the wheel with this one, it's still a pretty heavy melee focused build, but it's something different, which I think is probably what Titans are looking for, and personally, it's got a much more fun playstyle than just going up and down with Consecration. Plus, this build absolutely contends with Consecration in a few ways. It's got much better crowd control, way better super regen, and stupid amounts of survivability where you'll feel borderline unkillable because of how much damage reduction and healing you'll be stacking on top of each other. But the most important thing is that its gameplay loop is so satisfying. It's quick, it's snappy, it feels amazing to use, and is genuinely really powerful. All of the footage you'll see in the video is taken from Master Lost Sectors, where I'm 31 light under, and the build just powers through it. Lastly, if you get to the end of the video and you think it's been earned, any subs are super appreciated. They let me know I'm making stuff that people actually want to see. That's enough intro though, let's get into the build. The most important ability we're using in the build is Thunderclap. It's a chargeable melee that hits out a solid distance in front of it, with quick pressing the melee button launching it out straight away, and holding it down for 2 seconds fully charges it, doing double the damage. This ability has just been buffed and it feels so good right now. They buffed the damage of both the full charge as well as the quick tap, but the most important thing is that you now get 80% damage reduction whilst charging up this melee and for a small duration afterwards. Pre-nerf well was 40% DR. It's literally like you're standing in a double strength well whilst you charge this up. When I say you feel unkillable, I really mean it. And because later on we're going to stack up even more DR and healing on top of this, you genuinely feel unstoppable. Once this build gets rolling, it death balls so well. And everything else is pretty much building around supporting this melee. And that's absolutely true for our grenade, where you're going to want to take the Shackle Grenade. It's going to suspend anything hit by it, and it makes following up with a completely risk-free Thunderclap so easy. This also goes for the first aspect you're going to want to use in Diamond Lance. On Prismatic exclusively, it now reads on shattering or defeating targets with stasis weapons or abilities creates a stasis lance. This stasis lance freezes anything it hits. It can be either thrown from a long range, but freeze in a smaller area, or slammed into the ground for a larger AoE freeze. On spawning in a lance, it is then set on a 7-second cooldown for summoning another, and a lance can last for 25 seconds on the ground, and once you pick it up, you've got 10 seconds to throw it before it despawns. Again, this is another ability that's seen buffs going into the final shape, with both the throw and slam getting larger freeze radius, and it's so reliable in setting up your Thunderclaps. Every 7 seconds, you're going to have one of these, and every time you're not only going to get the bonus shatter damage, another thing that's been buffed this season, but a Thunderclap for free. Next up is Knockout, which on a melee kill restores HP, with higher tier enemies giving more HP back. Melee kills also give Amplified, and it has the added effect of when breaking an enemy shield or dealing damage to a target below 30% HP, you'll get 100% increased unpowered melee damage, 50% increased powered melee damage, increased lunge range, and your basic melee now counts as an arc powered melee hit. In short, it's damage and healing. But there are 2 interactions that are worth noting here. First is that any kills you get with your unpowered melee whilst Knockout is up can spawn in a Diamond Lance, as it's technically an arc ability and will proc it. Secondly is that frozen targets take increased damage from basic melee hits, and this stacks with the Knockout bonus damage. You see in the clips that I hit for around 8,000 damage base, and then with Knockout and Freeze it spikes up to 44,000 damage. Lastly is your class ability, and it's completely up to you. Whatever you enjoy more, use it. And before I go on to Fragments, your exotic armor is going to be the Insurmountable Skull form. This exotic is really simple. On a powered arc melee kill, you get 100% energy back and start health regen. That's it, as simple as. But you've been seeing in the background what that translates to in gameplay terms, and it is constant Thunderclap spam. And because of our mod setup as well, this is also going to mean some ridiculously fast supers, as well as really solid grenade regen. And just remember as well, if you're going in and out of Thunderclaps, literally doing them back to back, you'll be constantly getting that 80% DR. And like any prismatic build, you've also got access to Transcendence, which is 5% increased weapon damage, a 20% damage resist, as well as the Electrified Snare, Titan's unique grenade, which suspends, deals damage over time, and jolts. And this grenade, much like the Shackle grenade, is another great way to set up your Thunderclap. So in summary, we've got a self-refunding melee that's pretty much always damage boosted, 80% damage reduction, healing in both knockout and insurmountable skull form, and constant freezes through Diamond Lance as well as Transcendence. Let's make it even better. First fragment you're wanting to pick up here is Faceted Purpose, which on picking up an orb gives a buff depending on your equipped super, and where you get to make a choice between one of two supers. It's up to you which one, but you're going to want either Blade Fury, which is going to give you Woven Mail on orb pickup for 5 seconds, or Twilight Arsenal, which is going to give you a 22.5 HP Void Overshield for 5 seconds. It's completely up to you what you want to run, as they're both kind of giving similar bonuses. Next up is Faceted Protection, which while surrounded gives you a 15% damage reduction, and whilst Transcendent gives you a 32% damage reduction. It's a melee build, you'll be surrounded a lot, so this has some great uptime. You'll also want Faceted Ruin, which increases the size and damage of shattering an enemy or a stasis crystal, and increases the size of your ignitions. This is purely for the stasis side because of how many Diamond Lances you'll be throwing. Next is Faceted Courage, which causes your light abilities to deal an increased 10% damage to an enemy affected by a strand or stasis debuff. Your bread and butter combo in this build is Diamond Lance, Thunderclap, or Suspend, Thunderclap, so you'll be adding on a bit of extra damage to every one of those combos. It's really nice, you'll see this up permanently. In your last slot, you're going to want to take either Faceted Dawn or Faceted Bravery. Dawn won't be that impactful this season, as we've got access to Radiant Orbs on the seasonal artifact, but once this season rolls over, it's going to be a great choice. However, you can also take Bravery here. You won't be seeing volatile rounds a lot because the only grenade kills you'll ever really be getting are from Electrified Snare, which is tied to Transcendence, but Unraveling rounds will be up loads and is a really nice way to spawn entangles, as the only strand debuffs we've got are in Shackle and Electrified Snare. For seasonal artifact mods, you're looking out for 5 specifically. First is Threaded Blast, where destroying a tangle with a strand weapon makes the tangle deal more damage in a larger area. Does what it says on the tin, but it's really strong. Reminds me of OG Global Reach Warmind cells from back in the day. Already mentioned it before, but Radiant Orbs is great here. Free Radiant is never a bad thing. Galvanic Armor as well is really nice in this setup, which while amplified gives 30% damage reduction. Because we get amplified from knockout so consistently, this is pretty much up permanently. We see some really impactful stuff though in Shield Crush, which while you have Woven Mail, Frost Armor, or Void Overshield, you gain 25% faster base melee regen and deal 25% increased powered melee damage, and whilst you have Radiant or Amplified, you gain 25% base regen and they deal 25% increased damage. This is free damage and regen on both your melee and grenade, and the buffs required to proc them will have so much of the time, so it's definitely worth your choice. Lastly is Transference, which while Transcendent causes your grenade and melee to deal 10% increased damage, and weapon kills whilst Transcendent will refund Transcendent's energy once it ends. We want this for the bonus damage, and the regen is just a nice bonus. And that's all the ability stuff. Now onto the mod setup, which in this build is so important. First, on the helmet, you're going to want triple hands on, which on a melee kill will give you bonus super energy. Because our melee is up so much and is normally what's netting us kills, our super from these mods will be coming back so quickly. Add on to that the triple heavy-handed on your arms, and you're now also making orbs on melee kills. And because we have 3 of this mod, we're not only getting orbs that give 1.25% super energy on pickup, but we only have a 1-second cooldown between being able to make another. These 6 mods combined make farming supers so easy, to the point where you can pretty much super on cooldown and not have to worry about it, because a minute later, you'll probably have it back. For your chest, I normally run melee damage resist mods, and on the legs, I run double innovation and 1 absolution. But if you're going into a boss damage setting, you can't go wrong with surge mods either. On the mark, I always go 1 copy of Reaper, 1 distribution, and 1 bomber. Any other empty slots fill with stat boost, with your priority being resilience, then discipline, then intellect. Right, big breath, that was a lot of stuff. Tips for the build, and then I'm finished. First one's for Thunderclap. If you ever lose this because you miss or you overestimate its damage and you don't land a kill, it's really not that impactful. Transcendence will immediately refund it and let you keep up the pressure. And one of the bonuses of using Blade Fury, if that is the super you choose, is that it fully refunds your melee on ending, meaning you can Thunderclap, super, then go right back into Thunderclapping. As well, if you whiff a melee and you don't have either your super or Transcendence, you can just get knockout rolling, which will then cause your unpowered melee to spawn in Diamond Lances, letting you keep up the crowd control. Another thing this build is great at is giving you the option as to what Transcendence bar you want to top up, and this all comes down to Diamond Lance. If you're wanting to top up your Dark bar, throw or slam the Lance into a group of adds, then follow up with an unpowered melee. The shatter damage will go off and give you a load of Dark energy. If you're wanting to top up your Light bar though, do the same thing, but follow up with a Thunderclap instead, which will give you a load of light energy too. Speaking of Transcendence, Titans probably have the best grenade for dealing with champs. It'll suspend and jolt, which is already unstop and overload, and barrier champs can't put up their barrier if they're suspended, so it's technically got that covered too. And you can really easily go grenade, melee, and by the time anything suspended breaks free, you can just suspend them again, as the grenade will be back up. And as a general gameplay tip, don't be afraid to just stand in front of massive groups of adds and just charge Thunderclap. They literally can't do a single thing to stop you because of both your damage reduction and the healing you'll guarantee afterwards. As for weapons, you've got loads of freedom in what you want to choose, but Strand for unraveling rounds is obviously recommended, and I was also trying out Conditional Finality because it benefits really well from the Facet of Ruin, but that's no obligation. Use what you want, this build doesn't require anything in particular. And that's everything. The build, mods, seasonal stuff. I'd love to hear what you think about the build. I've purposely stayed away from Consecration Synthoceps because I don't think that build needs any more attention. It's already had its spotlight, and I don't think I'll be adding anything new to the build crafting scene if I just did another one of those. So that's why this build exists. And I'm glad it does because I've enjoyed it way more than Consecration Synthoceps. And for a build that uses a charge up melee, this build feels surprisingly fast paced. There's really never a dull moment, and that's something that I really enjoy. That's about it from me though. Hope you enjoy the build.